My name is Tatum Reeves. I'm 31 years old, and for 6 years my family treated me like I was already buried. I remember the exact moment I stopped existing to them. It was a Sunday in November, the kind of cold that seeps through the walls of a house that never felt like home anyway. My brother had just announced he was opening a second location of his gym franchise. His first one was barely breaking even, but my parents were already popping sparkling cider like he'd rung the opening bell at the NYSE. I sat across the table and waited for a pause, found one. Said I'd been accepted into the accelerated accounting program at Northwestern's continuing education division. Full ride, competitive as hell to get into. My dad picked up his fork. My mom asked my brother if he'd decided on the color scheme for the new location. My brother said navy and gold, very professional, and she said that sounded amazing. That was it. That was the whole moment. I drove home that night with my hands tight on the wheel and something cold settling in my chest. Not anger yet, more like clarity. The kind that hurts because you can't unfeel it once it arrives. 3 weeks later, I packed my car, left my key on the kitchen counter, sent one text to my mom that said I was moving to Charlotte for a job opportunity and I'd be in touch. She replied 3 hours later, "Okay, drive safe." My brother never responded at all. My dad sent a thumbs up emoji 2 days after that, like he'd just seen the message. If your family ever made you feel invisible while cheering for someone else, subscribe right now. Because 6 years later, my uncle posted a photo of my condo on Facebook, and my brother called me within the hour asking for $40,000. I landed in Charlotte with $800 in my checking account and a job offer for a junior bookkeeper position at a mid-sized logistics company off South Boulevard. The pay was $38,000 a year, which felt like nothing and everything at the same time. I found a room in a shared house near Uptown, 3 roommates, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where someone always left dishes in the sink. I didn't complain. I was too tired to complain. Work was fine. My manager, a quiet man who went through paper coffee cups like they were oxygen, gave me more responsibility faster than I expected. I showed up early, stayed late, learned the software no one else wanted to learn. By month 4, I was handling vendor reconciliations that were technically above my pay grade. I didn't ask for extra money. I just did the work and kept a record of everything I touched. My uncle checked in every couple of weeks. He was my dad's younger brother, the one who'd always been a little sideways from the rest of the family. Moved to Asheville years ago, had a salvage furniture business, called things like he saw them. His texts were short. "You good?" I'd say yes or mostly or getting there. He'd reply something like, "Good. Keep your head down." Never pushed. Never brought up my parents or my brother. Just steady. Back home, my brother's second gym location tanked inside 8 months. My parents loaned him money to stabilize the original location. I found this out later, secondhand, through a cousin who mentioned it like it was common knowledge. No one told me directly. No one asked if I wanted to know. My birthday came and went. Nothing from my parents. Nothing from my brother. I turned 26 in a bar on a Tuesday with 2 coworkers I barely knew, and a stranger who bought me a shot because he overheard me say it was my birthday. I remember thinking that was the kindest gesture anyone had made toward me in months. By year 2, I'd been promoted twice, junior bookkeeper to staff accountant to senior accountant, which at a company that size meant I was essentially running the financial operations for 4 regional divisions. My salary had jumped to $67,000. I opened a high-yield savings account and started putting 15% of every paycheck in automatically. I didn't touch it, didn't talk about it, just watched the number climb. My uncle's text stayed consistent. "You still out there?" I'd send back short updates. "Got a raise, moved apartments, finally have my own bathroom." He'd reply with a single line, "Good, you earned it." I moved into a 1-bedroom in a newer building in Nada, the Arts District, walking distance to a coffee shop I liked and a farmer's market that ran on Saturday mornings. Small place, but mine. Nobody else's dishes, nobody else's noise unless I wanted it. I stood in the middle of the empty living room on move-in day and just breathed for a minute. I started studying for my CPA license on evenings and weekends, 2 sections done by the end of year 2, the other 2 by the middle of year 3. The morning I passed the last exam, I sat in my car outside the testing center and called my uncle. He picked up on the second ring. I said I passed. He said, "There it is." That was enough. I got hired by a regional financial consulting firm 8 months later. Salary nearly doubled. I negotiated my own contract, something I never would have had the nerve to do 2 years earlier. Benefits: base pay, performance bonus structure, remote flexibility. The recruiter said I drove a harder bargain than most of their senior candidates. I said thank you and meant it as a compliment to myself. My uncle visited Charlotte that spring. We ate dinner at a place I liked near the Whitewater Center, outdoor patio, good bourbon selection, mountains visible in the distance when the weather was clear. He looked around the restaurant at me, at my city, at the version of me sitting across from him, and said, "You look like someone who finally figured out she didn't need permission." I didn't have a response for that. Just nodded. He mentioned my parents once, lightly, toward the end of the meal. Said they still talked about my brother's gym like it was a success story. Said they'd taken out a home equity line to cover some of his equipment debt. I listened. Didn't ask questions. Didn't have strong feelings about it either way. It felt like news from a country I used to live in. My 4th year in Charlotte, I did something I'd been thinking about for almost 18 months. I bought a condo, not a starter unit, a real place, 4th floor corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the skyline, 2 bedrooms, granite counters, a balcony I immediately put plants on. I paid $340,000, put 20% down. My mortgage payment was less than what a lot of people I knew paid in rent. The day I got the keys, I stood on that balcony and looked at the city below and thought about the Sunday in November with the sparkling cider and my mother asking about navy and gold. I didn't feel angry. I felt finished with it in a way that was almost peaceful. I kept the condo quiet for a while, didn't post about it, didn't tell people at work unless they asked why I seemed lighter. My uncle knew because I told him. He came down and helped me put together a bookshelf on the first weekend, and we ordered pizza and watched a game, and that was the housewarming party. Then one Saturday in September, he came by for lunch. He showed up with deli sandwiches and his phone out, cheerful and restless the way he gets when he's been on the road and has too much energy to sit still. We ate on the balcony. The weather was perfect. The kind of September afternoon that makes Charlotte feel like it was designed specifically to be lived in. He walked around, looked at the skyline view, whistled low. Then he said, "Hold on," and pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. I told him those were for him only. He grinned and said, of course, of course." We finished lunch. He helped me carry the dishes inside. I went to answer some emails and he headed out. I didn't think about it again until Monday morning when my cousin texted me and said, "Oh my God, is that your place?" I had no idea what she meant. Then she sent me a screenshot. My uncle had posted 3 photos to his Facebook: the balcony, the skyline view, the living room. Caption: "My niece Tatum built this from the ground up. 31 years old, CPA, corner unit with a view. That's how it's done." I sat at my desk and stared at the screen for a full minute. By noon, the post had 47 shares. By end of business, it had cleared 200. My uncle's friends, his salvage business connections, people from his Asheville neighborhood, they were all over it. "Stunning. She did that herself? Look at that view. Your family must be so proud." Tuesday morning, my brother messaged me. It was the first time I'd heard from him directly in 6 years. The message said, "Hey, saw Uncle's post. Looks nice. Can we catch up sometime?" I read it 3 times. Sent a screenshot to my uncle. He replied immediately, "Here we go." My dad messaged Wednesday. "Tatum, it's Dad. Saw the pictures. Your place looks beautiful. You've really done well for yourself. We should talk. Call me when you get a chance." I didn't call. I didn't respond to either of them. I forwarded everything to my uncle, who said, "Let them sit." They've had 6 years to reach out. A Facebook post didn't change anything. But I kept checking. I couldn't help it. Some part of me that I thought I'd put away was still paying attention. Thursday, my brother sent a follow-up. "Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. We've been out of touch too long." Then a few hours later, also, "I don't know if you heard, but the gym's been going through a rough patch. Nothing crazy, just some cash flow stuff. Anyway, let me know if you want to talk." There it was. "My uncle called that evening. Heard from your dad," he said. "Your dad asked me for your phone number. I told him I'd pass it along if you wanted me to. I said I didn't know yet." He said, "Fair enough." Then he said, "Tatum, your brother's in trouble. Real trouble. I'm not telling you to do anything about it. Just want you to know what's coming." I sat on my balcony with a glass of water and looked at the skyline and tried to figure out what I felt. It wasn't sympathy exactly. It wasn't satisfaction either. It was more like exhaustion. Like watching a predictable movie you'd already seen. Friday, my dad called from an unknown number. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. Tatum, this is Dad. I know it's been a while. Your uncle showed us the photos and we're really proud of you. And we miss you. I know things got complicated when you left. Your mom and I have talked about it a lot over the years. We'd love to see you. There's also something going on with your brother that we wanted to discuss. Nothing urgent, just family stuff. Call me back. I played it twice. Then I texted my uncle, they're coming, aren't they? He replied, booked flights for next weekend, all 3 of them. I put my phone down and went for a walk. 40 minutes through Noda, past the breweries and the murals and the coffee shops still open at 9 on a Friday night. I thought about the Sunday in November. I thought about the thumbs up emoji 2 days late. I thought about 26 years old in a bar on a Tuesday with a stranger buying me a shot. I thought about what I wanted to say to them. Realized I'd been rehearsing it in some quiet corner of my mind for 6 years without knowing it. Saturday morning I texted my uncle, I'll see them. But it's my terms, my space, my timeline. He replied, that's my girl. They landed on a Thursday afternoon and showed up at my building at 5:30. I watched them on the lobby camera from my phone, my dad in a fleece vest, my mom with a rolling carry-on even though they were staying at a hotel 2 blocks away, my brother in a hoodie with his hands in his pockets looking everywhere except straight ahead. I buzzed them up. They came off the elevator and stopped in the hallway. My mom's face when she saw me was complicated, something between relief and guilt and a thing she was working very hard to suppress. My dad opened his arms like everything was fine, like 6 years was a long weekend we'd all just been too busy for. My brother hung back. I didn't hug my dad, I stepped to the side and held the door open. Come in! They stood in my living room and looked around the way people do when they're trying not to look like they're assessing. My mom touched the edge of the kitchen counter. My dad walked to the window. My brother stayed near the door. I sat in the chair across from the couch. Not next to anyone. Across. My dad started with small talk. Long flight, ate at the airport. Charlotte looks bigger than they expected. My mom said the view was really something. My brother said the place was nice, said it quietly like he meant it. I let them talk for a few minutes. Then I said, what did you want to discuss? My dad shifted. Well, we wanted to see you. It's been too long, and that's on us, and we know that. I waited. He kept going, and there was the thing with your brother. He looked at my brother. My brother looked at his hands. So, the gym, the original location. It's been struggling. I've been underwater for about 18 months. I owe back rent on the lease. I've got equipment financing I can't keep up with, and there's a business loan coming due in 60 days that I can't roll over. I need about $40,000 to stabilize, I was hoping. He looked up. I looked back at him. He said, I was hoping you might be able to help. Just the loan. I'd pay you back. My mom said your family. Like that answered something. My dad said, you've clearly done well for yourself, and we raised you to take care of each other. I let that sit in the air for a moment. Then I said, I want to say something, and I need all 3 of you to listen without interrupting. Can you do that? They nodded. I said, the November before I left, I told all of you I'd been accepted into a competitive professional program, a full scholarship. I sat at that table for 20 minutes and none of you acknowledged it. Not once. You talked about navy and gold color schemes. My mom started to say something. I held up one hand. I said I turned 26 alone. My mom, you posted happy birthday to my brother that same week even though his birthday is in April and mine was the week before. You just wanted to post about him. I turned 27, 28, 29, 30. I passed my CPA exam. I got promoted 3 times. I negotiated a contract that most senior candidates couldn't land. I bought this condo at 31 at 20% down. I did not hear from any of you. Not once, not even by accident. My brother said, Tatum, I know. I said, I'm not finished. He went quiet. I said, you deleted my contact. I didn't delete yours. I checked for the first year every few weeks, thinking maybe I'd hear something. A birthday text, an accident, anything. There was nothing. You made a choice 6 years ago and every day after that to act like I didn't exist. And I have to tell you something. After about year 2, it stopped hurting. What it became instead was just information. It told me exactly what I was dealing with, and I built my life accordingly. The room was quiet. My dad said, "Tatum, we're sorry. We were wrong. We should have." I said, "I don't need the apology right now. I needed it 6 years ago. It might have changed things 6 years ago. Right now, what I need you to understand is that I'm not going to loan my brother $40,000. I'm not going to loan any amount of money to anyone in this room. Not because I can't, and not because I'm punishing anyone. Because this is a boundary that protects me, and I spent 6 years learning to protect myself because no one else was going to." My brother said, "So that's it? You're not going to help?" I said, "I'm asking you to leave." My mom started crying. She said, "We came all this way." I said, "I know. I saw you put the flights on my uncle's group thread. I've known since last weekend you were coming." I had 6 days to decide if I wanted to have this conversation, and I decided I did, because I needed you to hear what I just said. But I'm not changing my answer, and I'd like you to go now. My dad stood slowly. He said, "This isn't who we raised you to be." I said, "You raised me to be invisible. I raised myself to be this." He opened his mouth, closed it. My brother picked up his hoodie from the couch armrest. He looked around the apartment one more time. He said, very quietly, "You did really well, Tatum. I mean it. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see any of it." I didn't know what to do with that. I felt like the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. I nodded once. He nodded back. They filed out. My mom turned at the door, still teary, and said, "I hope you'll give us a chance." I said, "I hope so too." Then I closed the door. I stood in the middle of my living room for a long time after that. The skyline was doing what it does at dusk, everything shifting orange and violet, the city lights starting to wake up. My plants on the balcony, all 12 of them now, catching the last of the afternoon sun. The granite counter my mom had touched, the window my dad had stood in front of, all of it still mine, undisturbed. My uncle called 20 minutes later. "How'd it go?" I said what I needed to say. He was quiet for a second, then good, that's all it had to be. I didn't hear from my parents for 2 weeks after that. When I did, it was a short email from my mom. She said they'd thought a lot about the conversation. Said she was sorry they made me feel unseen. Said the door was open if I ever wanted to try to rebuild something. She didn't mention money. She didn't mention my brother. I read it 4 times. Filed it in a folder I made called Possible. Not yes, not no. Possible. My brother's gym closed 6 weeks later. I found out through my uncle, who kept me loosely informed without editorializing. The equipment was repossessed. The lease was terminated early with penalties. He filed for Chapter 13, which gave him a restructuring plan instead of a full liquidation. I knew enough about financials to understand what that meant for him and what it didn't fix. My parents used a chunk of their retirement savings to cover some of the personal guarantees he'd signed. They were still in their house, but they'd taken a real hit. I didn't feel triumphant about any of it. That surprised me a little. I thought maybe I would, and I didn't. It just felt like a consequence landing where it had always been going to land. I keep working, keep building. I got promoted again in February, now heading a full advisory division with 4 people reporting to me. I have a financial advisor who is genuinely offensively good at her job and makes me feel like I'm going to be fine no matter what the market does. I have plants on my balcony and a coffee shop downstairs and Saturday morning farmers markets, and my uncle visiting every couple of months with deli sandwiches and his salvage business gossip. I have a possible folder in my email that I open sometimes and look at without replying. And I have the thing I built. All of it. From a $38,000 bookkeeper job and a room in a shared house and 1 late-night text from someone who said you good and waited. That is the only inheritance I ever needed. I think about the folder on my laptop sometimes. The one labeled Possible. It has 1 email in it and I haven't replied in 4 months. I'm not sure I will. I'm not sure I won't. That uncertainty used to feel like weakness to me, like I hadn't fully closed the door, like I was still waiting for something. Now, it just feels like honesty. I don't know what I want from them yet. And I've learned that not knowing is a legitimate answer. What I do know is what it cost me to get here, and I don't mean money. There's a version of the last 6 years where I let what they did to me become the story I told about myself. Where I stayed small because they taught me that was my size. Where it took the $38,000 job and the shared house bathroom and let them confirm what they'd always implied, that I wasn't the one worth watching. I almost let that happen. There were nights in year 1 where I thought I was too tired to keep going, where the silence from my phone felt like a verdict. But I think about what it actually took to not let that happen, and it wasn't one thing. It was 3 things, working together, slowly, without any fanfare. The first was just doing the right thing consistently even when no one was watching, showing up early to a job where no one would have noticed if I'd coasted, learning the software no one else wanted to touch, filing things carefully, keeping records. I wasn't performing integrity for an audience. There was no audience. I was just doing it because it was the only way I could respect myself in a situation where nobody else was doing that job for me. That matters more than I understood at the time. The way you behave when it costs you something and no one will ever know is the thing that actually builds you. The second was figuring out what was true and acting on it. I had to understand my own situation clearly. What my finances actually were, what my skills actually were, what the market would actually pay for them. I couldn't afford to be wishful or vague. I studied, I got the CPA. I negotiated my own contract because I'd done the research and I knew my number and I walked in prepared. That kind of thinking saved me. Not in a dramatic way. Just quietly, month after month, compound interest on decisions made with a clear head instead of a wounded one. The third was refusing to stop. That's the plainest way I can say it. There was no morning I woke up feeling ready. I was tired most of year 1. Uncertain most of year 2. The promotion felt good, but it also felt like more responsibility. I wasn't sure I could carry. I carried it anyway. I kept going not because I felt strong, but because stopping felt worse. That's what persistence actually is, not confidence, not momentum, just the decision to take the next step even when you can't see the one after it. My brother called me on a Thursday and asked for $40,000. My dad stood in my living room and said I wasn't who they raised me to be. And I looked at both of them and thought, you're right, I'm not. The person you raised was quiet and unseen, and waiting for your approval. I raised myself into someone else entirely. That's the only inheritance I ever needed to give myself.